Welcome to our weekly discussion of current affairs. We call it Moral Side of the News. We're glad you're alongside this weekend. I'm John Blim with the WHAS Crusade for Children. With me this week, a distinguished panel, as always, Reverend Dr. Kilen Gray, Louisville Presbyterian Theological Seminary, Reverend Jason Crosby, Crescent Hill Baptist Church, Rabbi Stan Miles, Louisville Melton School, and Father Tony Smith, Archdiocese of Louisville. Welcome, panel. We begin today with a much talked about spot for Louisville's homeless population. Hope Village opened this week, dubbed a safe outdoor space for Louisville residents who are homeless. It includes showers, toilets, hand washing stations, electricity, and a food distribution area. No one is pretending it answers all the challenges of those facing homelessness, but supporters believe it does offer stability for those who are not ready or not well suited for living indoors at a shelter. So turning to our panel on Moral Side of the News, let's hear your thoughts about the new Hope Village.
Well, I'd like to just start off by just congratulating Stacey Bussey and the board of the Hope Bus Incorporated. Stacey Bussey is a graduate of Louisville Presbyterian Theological Seminary, one of our shining stars and one of the lights of our community. Before this development, she has been consistently an advocate for justice throughout the community. It is infused throughout the board. I think that although any type of response you do for the homeless cannot resolve all issues of it, but we got to do something. And that's the spirit that the Hope Bus Inc. has with it. I celebrate them of their efforts in any way that I can, whatever I can do to help to support it, I definitely will. But I think it's a great idea, and I'm glad to see it. I'm grateful for the collaborative approach that they've taken with it, with the city helping and with other agencies. I think Wellspring is providing mental health in partnership with them, and that's the way to go. You know, we're going to take a behemoth like homelessness. You have to do it in partnership with other agencies.
You have to work at it little by little. The thought occurred to me, of course, for full disclosure, the property used to be the old chancery for the Archdiocese of Louisville. The building, I'm presuming they're bringing in all the other stuff that helps them out, the showers, whatever, because that building really needs work. But still, it is, as you say, it tackles part of the issue. There's lots and lots of other aspects and tangents that we have to cover. I was hopefully, and I'm glad to see that this was not something that was just spur of the moment type thing with the Derby coming up to kind of, put the homeless away from public view type thing. So it's been worked on, and I agree with you. Congratulations on all that. The only comment I would have in regards to concern is we have trouble, as I understand it, with the homeless in the areas where they were in the streets. Some people not even wanting to go to shelters and things of this nature. Now, we don't have bad weather right now, knock on wood. But I mean, this is another aspect we need to look at. This is not addressing that issue as such, but if you have a number of people that do not want to be assisted in this form or fashion, we still need to work with those folks too. So there's another avenue for another bright star to come out and say, how do we handle this? But like yourself, Caroline, I'm very much appreciative and blessings upon them for doing this. And let's give them a good attaboy and good courage to continue further along the way.
Well, and I would just quickly note, I think one of the other topics we're planning on touching upon today is the American Rescue Plan funds. If I am not mistaken, part of the money that is being used to initiate and get this program off the ground came from some of those funds. So just want to note that it takes that kind of public investment and initiative, be it at the municipal, state, or federal level, to deal with problems of this variety. I was downtown. My wife works downtown. We've been through downtown on not quite a daily basis, but a very regular basis over the course of the pandemic. One thing that was notable last week was that the homeless camps that were situated there near Wayside Christian Mission under the I-65 overpasses have been cleared. And it's kind of heartbreaking to think about folks who obviously had been there for some time and were there for a reason. For them to be displaced And of course, the Derby is on the horizon. And so there are mixed emotions there for me. With that said, one silver lining with this particular place is that unlike some of the green space, unlike underneath the overpass, the availability of wraparound services and mental health support is so significant. And so while you don't want to just move people around, if you don't have an infrastructure set up whereby people can have basic needs met and they can have access to some of these resources, I don't see how you can even begin to scratch the surface of this program. So yes, Kilen, I've had the chance to encounter Stachel on several occasions, and she, I know, will do a great job. And the fact that we at least can explore how we can approach this problem differently as a community is definitely a good step in the right direction. You know, insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. At least something different is happening.
I want to go in a different direction. First of all, I agree with absolutely everything that has been said, but I'm trying to think of the first time I heard the term homeless or homelessness. And that was in the early 1980s. You know, if we go back to the 1960s, there was a war on poverty in this country. And some of the things still left from it are Head Start for preschoolers. But many of the initiatives of that war on poverty were gone in the 1980s, and these were the social service agencies, the public hospitals, the safety nets. So the war on poverty, I feel, at one point in time turned on a war against the poor by the federal government. And that caused, to me, the problem of homelessness that we are just beginning to revisit once again. And anything that can be done is good, but I would love to see the problem solved.
I think that one of the ways to get to that is, as Jason was talking about, a collaborative effort of everyone, that homelessness needs to be, or houselessness, as they're now referring to the condition of houselessness, is an issue that is connected to poverty. And you can put a beeline from most of the issues that we have, from crime to family challenges, directly related to poverty. And poverty is a major issue. We have had bills and legislation or that has been touted, a war on this and a war on that. And it ends up being a war on the poor, a war on minorities, and a war on all of the marginalized persons. We can solve this problem if we have the will. Our nation does not have the will to resolve poverty in our country and all of the things that comes from that. But we have the will. We're proving it every day with every time there's a conflict, every time there's a military conflict in the world. We prove as a nation what we can do when we have the will to do it. It is insane that we still have houselessness anywhere in this country. It is sad. It is insane that we have people who can't eat, and that they are food challenged, and that there are food deserts, and all of these things that comes with what poverty brings about. I would like to see us as a city, particularly in Louisville and in this area, that every nonprofit, every religious institution can come together to really put together a long-term commitment to end poverty as we know it. It sounds like it would be Pollyannish, but trust me, this nation proves every time that the nation feels that it is at risk by enemies from without in all the ways that we describe human beings in those types of ways. We show what we can do when we have a will to do it. We started out saying that we were going to bring we didn't know what we were going to do in Ukraine. But now President Biden is lifting up his third request of $33 billion to help to support. And yes, that we need to end that evil that's happening there. But we have a will to do it. We show that we don't have a will to end poverty. And that's why homelessness will continue to exacerbate our cities.
I think you're right
it's
on that
not
one,
only
too.
insane, it's obscene.
Immoral.
It's obscene.
Immoral. Now, I was going to say, to your point, I would agree, because some people can see what's happening here, and also the ARP funds and whatever, and some say, well, look, there's the issue, it's being taken care of, et cetera, et cetera. Failing to realize that the funding for the homeless and for all the other little wonderful things we're going to talk about in the next section, that money comes to an end unless there is that ability, as you say, to get together and say, we dedicate ourselves to this in the future going forward, whatever. And I think you're absolutely right. I think we can't rest on any kind of laurels to say, you see, we're showing love of God, love of neighbor, et cetera. No, this is just one little flick in the whole system that needs to be redone. I concur with you on that.
Well, and I just mentioned, if I'm not mistaken, at the moment, $1 million of public funding has been allocated for this investment. You know, to you, to me, to imagine all my fellow conversation partners, $1 million is a lot of money. But oftentimes what happens when we're dealing with a societal issue that we really don't want to deal with is that we put a Band-Aid on it that makes us feel better and say, well, look, we dedicated what to any of us would be a significant amount of money, but the reality is $1 million is just a tiny drop in an ocean of resources that could be allocated to address issues like this. And so I think one thing that is helpful from a moral, ethical, and spiritual perspective is to recognize the ways in which sometimes charity exacerbates the problems that we have. And until we get serious about really investing ourselves as individuals in the community and collectively putting resources that we have in certain directions, we might just be kicking cans down the road.
Very good.
Let's segue to our second topic. Speaking about millions of dollars, more good news for Metro Louisville. Fourth round of federal American Rescue Plan dollars will include nearly $88 million to support youth and childcare initiatives, invest in parks and pools, and reopen library branches in Parkland and Fern Creek. So, panel, talking about funding, talking about millions. This is good news for Louisville during Derby week.
It's excellent news, and it once again, as with our first issue today, it's a start. Now, what has to happen? Let's take those libraries, for example. There's money to reopen them. Now it's up to Metro Council to figure out how to consistently rebudget them so that they don't close again, so that the pools are reopened and the budget deals with those situations so that the swimming pools don't close again.
Pools, community centers, libraries. This is an example of what can happen to curb the types of issues that are happening in our communities. You know, I grew up in the south side of Memphis, and I tell you, the thing that really helped us in our community growing up in South Memphis were libraries, pools, community centers, and a place where there could be positive direction and investment within the youth of our communities. I love this move. I agree with Jason. It's a drop in the bucket. It needs to be. I agree with you, Rabbi, that we need to make sure that Metro Council picks up this lead and just make the decision. We can do this. we can fund help for our communities with city tax dollars and ensure that we provide something different within these communities other than just what has been in the communities that adds to the plight of life in those areas. I champion that move.
And I would say that the reaction to the community at large for the possibility of the necessity of including more dollars into the pot is going to be a sign that whether or not we're really willing to commit ourselves, just talk about ideally, but unless you open up your wallet, et cetera, and say, okay, I'm willing to do this, then again, words don't cost much, but it's the action that with community. So I would applaud again what everyone is saying, and I would hope that, again, you say this is the beginning. So let's use this as a stepping off point to, again, commit ourselves, not only just to the moment while the Derby's going on and all this other good stuff, but to as the future of our community, because it's the future of our children's lives.
And I think, as we shift from the previous topic regarding the houselessness situation to this whole laundry list of investments that are coming our way, I think this provides us with a very vivid, stark, clear contrast, right? $1 million there. Metro Council is looking at divvying up, I believe, $87.4 million in this particular round of decision making. And this is part of, if I'm not mistaken, $388 million that the city has its discretion since the rescue plan funds began to flow. And look what happens. Swimming pools, libraries, childcare, broadband access for kids that struggled during COVID, housing for Simmons College of Kentucky to help them educate students and to develop workforce. This is it. This is what the difference looks like between $1 million and $388 million. And the ways in which that kind of investment can be transformational. And I'm grateful, Metro Council, this is largely not money generated locally. These are federal funds, but the wisdom with which these monies are being distributed throughout our community, I think, are addressing some of the most pressing needs that local decision makers have identified. So let's not forget this moment. Let's not forget what it costs. It costs.
Very, very good. Let's move on to our third topic. We'll talk about billions of dollars here. Amazon founder Jeff Bezos purchased the Washington Post in 2013. And now the world's richest man, Tesla and SpaceX CEO Elon Musk, has purchased the social media platform Twitter for $44 billion. Musk said he'll make the algorithms open source to increase trust, defeat the spam bots, and authenticate all humans. So now, panel, turning to you, is this too much media power for one person to own?
Well, before we get to that question, and I just want to note, there is a through line through our topics today. 1 million, 388 million, 44 billion.
Right.
There you go.
Pretty soon we'll be talking serious money.
Exactly right.
Well, all kinds of concerns I have with this. I mean, this is the free market economy that we're in. I don't have any type of a conversation about the board deciding to take this bid from Elon Musk, but for him to have absolutely no experience in this entire social media field and to believe that he can actually, and he'll do it through other people. He'll do it through hiring some other people to promote a personal philosophy, a particular personal philosophy of freedom of speech, which my fear is that it just brings the social media space right back to an unethical understanding of freedom of speech, where people just say whatever they want to say without any regard or respect that the only respect that there is the respect of someone to say what they want to say. If that's how he's describing freedom of speech, I don't want any part of it. I was off of Twitter about a couple of years ago, and I posted on my Facebook page that with this development, this seals the deal. I'm not coming back.
First off, I must confess I am not on social media whatsoever, Twitter, Facebook, or whatever. I have trouble with internet, emails, and things of this nature. But I will repeat the age-old adage that he who controls communication controls the world. In the sense of, if you look at what's happening in Ukraine and whatever, the big debate between what Russians see and what the rest of the world sees, et cetera, we can see the danger there. He has the perfect right to do what he's doing. As I understand the law, I'm not a constitutional lawyer. But if we discount what he's doing or have trouble, that there are remedies that can be had through law, et cetera. But I just got to mind again, I mentioned Ukraine and Russia. You know, we've heard so much about the oligarchs over there having such influence. Well, we have our own oligarchs here as well. And this is one of them. This is what they say, the richest man in the world, supposedly. Maybe, I don't know. Who knows? But at the same time, he does have influence. And can you imagine what, I'm not paint scenarios, but there is a danger of wielding such influence, as you say, not just with the right freedom of speech, but whatever topic may be of the essence at the time for his benefit. That's a danger. I'm just concerned about any safeguards we have to block that. Constitutionally, there are some, but again, they need to be fleshed out more too. So I'm with yourself. I give him every right to do what he's doing, but at the same time, I just have this really weird feeling that how do we control, once the bull is let out of the china shop or into the china shop, how do you kind of control that aspect? So
this isn't a new phenomenon. We're going back to 100 years ago when Henry Ford bought a newspaper. And it was a small newspaper. It was called the Dearborn Independent. And Henry Ford had an antagonism against Jews. And he used this newspaper to promote hatred of Jews. And it went on for the better part of the 1920s. It ended in the 1920s, but it resonated literally, well, it resonates to this very day. And I gotta think that the Federal Communications Commission has some input in the situation today of who owns what and what their public responsibilities are. Yes, I believe in freedom of communication. It's more than just freedom of the press, it's freedom of communication. But I am not an advocate for screaming fire if I'm in a crowded theater.
Yeah, Stan, there have to be limitations, right? And I think one thing that we're dealing with globally, as well as nationally, as well as locally, is when there are just falsehoods that run amok. Who is it that gets to regulate that? And you know, one thing that comes to my mind, again, I think connecting all these topics today is, do I appreciate bureaucracy? No. I don't want to wait in line to renew my driver's license. You know, there got to be some efficiencies. Are there examples of waste when it comes to government and public funds? Absolutely. What if we took $44 billion from one fella to buy Twitter and we set up homeless camps? What if we had that kind of money when it came to broadband and childcare and housing? It's mind-blowing. And so one of the biggest myths that capitalism has taught us is that big government's the enemy. And time again, that myth only hurts everyone except for the likes of Elon Musk. And until people begin to understand that ideology, that religiosity, which is baked into American Christianity, is is not in accordance with the teachings of Scripture as I understand them, then we're going to continue to struggle.
We live in a culture that champions these types of developments, and that myth of a vision that you can be the next Elon Musk, that you can be the next Bezos, and it's the pursuit of what you see and the ignoring of what it takes to get there. And there's a godly amount of inhumanity that has to take place in order to accumulate that type of wealth. And the disconnect that type of wealth, not, again, people have the right to pursue whatever they choose to pursue, but there's so much that could be helped in the world with that same type of energy that doesn't get that type of attention. I'm concerned about the danger that the quote unquote freedom of speech will have, as Stan so wonderfully reminded us, that someone's freedom that has power and that has privilege can become a danger to the underprivileged and the powerless. And I'm hoping and praying that this doesn't become another example of that. But my faith and hope in that is not high.
Okay, panel, we've got about a minute and a half left in this program, Moral Side of the News. It's less than a week to the running of the 148th Annual Kentucky Derby. Are there any Derby-related events you look forward to or being with your family or celebrate this time of year?
I look forward to another Derby attendance. Our Creative Spirits, our behavioral health company, we have always taken as a gift for one of our employees who have done some wonderful work, and we'll take them and take their family to have a wonderful day at the Downs. And so we hope that we can do that again.
Anyone else have just a top of mind?
Well, just quickly, on Sunday afternoon, I went to a fundraiser for Simmons College, which we mentioned earlier. They have a significant event. And one thing that they do at that fundraiser is highlight the fact that, in particular, over the course of the first several decades of the Derby, Black jockeys won, and then they were shut out. So we raised money and learned more about the role of Black trainers and jockeys in the history of the Derby. I appreciate that.
All right, as Derby kicks off, may the best horse win. We hope you pick a winner. Our thanks to Kilen Gray, Jason Crosby, Stan Miles, and Tony Smith. If you'd like to catch this program again, just go over to YouTube and jump on YouTube and search for Moral Side of the News. And Moral Side is also now a podcast. So just search for Moral Side wherever you get your podcast. Thank you, panel. We'll be back again next week. So long. The 69th Annual WHAS Crusade for Children is set for June 4th and 5th. Just go to whascrusade.org and see all the ways you can make a donation to the Crusade for Children and make a secure donation online. That's at whascrusade.org. You can also mail your donation to 520 West Chestnut Street, Louisville, Kentucky 40202. That's 520 West Chestnut Street, Louisville, Kentucky 40202. Thank you for supporting children with special needs through the WHAS Crusade for Children.